SpaceX may become one of the greatest companies of our lifetime and still be a disappointing stock. That sounds impossible until you understand one thing. Investing is not just about what a company is doing right now or about what they're projected to do in the future. It's also about how much of that future have you already paid for. You can love the product, believe in the CEO, see enormous growth ahead, and you can even be right about all of that and still lose money. I've been investing for over a decade, and I've been tracking my portfolio publicly on YouTube for the last year and a half while beating the market. And I don't say this to tell you that I never make mistakes. I'm saying this because I know how easy it is to get roped into an exciting story and then see thousands of dollars disappear when the hype subsides. Today, we are putting SpaceX through my 5-part framework to answer the question that most investors forget to ask. What must happen for this stock price to actually make sense? But first, let me make it painfully simple. If a business is going to pay you, the owner, $100 per year, would you buy that business for $500? I absolutely would. I'm getting my money back in 5 years. That's a great return. But if I had to pay $5,000 for that same business, the same product, the same profits, suddenly that's a whole different conversation. Nothing changed but the price tag. And the hard part here is that companies in the stock market are not priced for how they're doing right now. They're priced on expectations. How much does the market think that this company is going to perform in the future? If the company does great, but the expectations were even higher, then you can still have a disappointing share price. At the end of the day, nobody can predict 100% what the stock market's going to do. All you can control is your process. That's why I invest publicly. When I make a mistake, you see it. When it works out, you get to see the process that got me there. That is the key. Before I buy a stock, I want to know, what am I paying for and what has to go right for my investment to pay off. I do a simple 5-step framework. I made it into an acronym so it's easy to understand. The price framework. So P, plain business. Do I understand how this business makes revenue? R, real growth. Is this company actually growing its revenue for a good reason, not just a whole bunch of acquisitions, or is it raising its money through dilution or debt? I, investor cash. Does this actually turn revenue into free cash flow? C, cost of cash flow. How much am I paying for the actual cash flow that I'm getting? And then finally, expectations. What has to go right for this stock for me to beat the market? And really, it's that 5th letter that gets most investors, the E. Most people don't understand what actually has to happen for their investment to pay off. In a second, we're going to use this framework to analyze SpaceX. This is a great example because there is so much hype around this company. And admittedly, SpaceX is an amazing company. And a lot of people might be thinking, if this is a great company, won't the share price eventually fill in? Won't I eventually get good returns if it's a really great company? And the answer is not necessarily. A great company can grow for years and still give investors a weak return if that starting price was too high because of unrealistic expectations. And I understand it can be really difficult to stay on the sidelines when you've got a really exciting story because you don't want to be the one that misses the next NVIDIA. But here's the deal. It is much more costly for you to invest in a really bad company than it is for you to not invest in a company that ends up doing really well. You actually don't get hurt at all if you don't invest in every single opportunity. Nobody can actually pick every single great opportunity in the stock market. You just need to avoid the really bad ones, preserve your capital, and invest in a lot of really solid companies. And then that might lead you to ask, should I even be picking stocks? Maybe I should just be buying ETFs and getting the entire exposure to the market. That way I'm always invested in all of the big winners. And for the majority of people, I would say that's 100% right. It takes a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of expertise to successfully pick stocks. So picking is only for you if you, number one, legitimately enjoy doing it, and 2, have the time to put in the work to do a good job picking stocks. That's the difference between building wealth and gambling with your financial future. And so speaking of gambling, now let's take a look at SpaceX. And before anyone gets mad, I'm not saying that SpaceX is a bad business. They are clearly very exciting. I mean, reusable rockets, Starlink, government contracts, AI, Elon Musk, they've got a lot going on for them. But it's that exciting story that is the exact reason why investors need to slow down. So let's run through the price frameworks. Number 1, plain business. What does this company actually do? Here's a slide from their investor roadshow where they go over their total addressable market. And so in the near term, they're saying they have a $6 trillion total addressable market $370 billion is allocated towards space. This is the SpaceX portion of the business where they're actually shooting rockets. Number 2 is connectivity. This is Starlink. This is $1.6 trillion. And then number 3 is AI, which is $3.8 trillion, which is actually the biggest segment. And this right here, just starting with the P, it surprises a lot of investors. When you think of SpaceX, a lot of people are just thinking, oh, this is a rocket company. But that's only a small percentage of what they're actually doing. The majority of their total addressable market is coming from Starlink and AI. So with the proper framework, now we really understand this is really more of an AI-oriented company. So that's going to really shape how we think about this analysis going forward. Next is our real growth. And yes, SpaceX is growing their revenue quite a bit through Starlink and through SpaceX segments. AI is currently not giving them any profits, but it is heavily projected to grow. So according to Goldman Sachs, SpaceX AI revenue is projected to go up to $15.6 billion in 2026, $34.5 billion in 2027. That's a 100% increase. And by 2030, they're projecting $322 billion related to the AI segment. So this company is projected to grow a lot. So that's a lot of real growth, but is it reasonable? To what extent can they actually 100x their AI revenue over the next 5 years and then continue to build revenue in other ways? So their total revenue growth projection is over $400 billion by 2030. That is massive growth. But let's look at a couple of their biggest segments here. Currently, XAI is ranked the absolute lowest compared to Google, compared to Anthropic, compared to OpenAI. They are hugely behind in terms of the AI race. Now, is it possible that they could start taking market share in a huge way from these other companies that are already established? Right here shows the approximate start date. Looks like XAI really got off the ground in 2025 in terms of which models are businesses paying for. That's what this graph is. This is not accounting for every use of AI, and it even goes on down here to say that this measure is adoption only. Free or personal account AI is undercounted here, and that's fine. Here is another graph showing generative AI chatbot market share by as of July 2026. And once again, Grok is at one of the absolute lowest, 0.6% market share. Elon Musk is losing the race. Elon Musk himself would say the same thing. Here is from a post of his. He says he was clearly wrong about Anthropic. They are obviously the current leader in AI. So the AI segment, he's starting from behind. What about their Starlink sector? So currently they are the leader in Starlink. However, Amazon is now starting to compete with them. And so this article right here shows that currently 12,000 authorized satellites in Starlink's constellation. Amazon is up to 3,236. And you can't just compare these two one-to-one. The way that Amazon is doing their satellites, they require far fewer compared to Starlink. Starlink is in a lower Earth orbit. So 3,000 compared to 12,000, it sounds like a huge difference, but Amazon is starting to pick up the pace. So not only is SpaceX way behind in AI, there's competition rising in their other big total addressable market. The next letter is I, investor cash. Are they actually able to create free cash flow from their revenue? And in this case, the answer is no. SpaceX did have in 2025 $6.78 billion in operating cash flow. However, they had to spend $20 billion on capital expenditures. So the result is they actually had negative about $14 billion in free cash flow. So currently, no, this company is not able to get any free cash flow from their revenue. So the question is, how are they actually coming up with the cash to fund this massive growth? And right now they are number one, diluting. They just issued through their IPO 555 million shares, each share worth $135. That's about $75 billion that they were able to raise through dilution. The second way that they're raising cash is through debt. This is SpaceX balance sheet, and if I scroll down to their total liabilities or their total long-term liabilities, they have $36 billion in debt as well. This is really important for us to take into account. However, we also have to consider their projected growth. As the company grows at a very rapid pace, according to the analysts, then they'll start to see more and more free cash flow. The next letter is C, cost of cash flow. How much am I paying for, in this case, a negative free cash flow? So the way I'm going to look at this, instead of looking at their free cash flow, I'm going to look at their price compared to their revenue. So the market cap of SpaceX right now is $1.91 trillion. If I wanted to buy this whole business, that's how much it would cost me. Their revenue is for 2025, we're going to use their 2025 revenue, $18.67 billion. This is roughly a 99 price to sales ratio. It would take 99 years for their revenue to equal their total market cap. Now, this sounds crazy, but let's look at it compared to other companies. So here is a stock screener that I have pulled up. This is the aerospace industry. So this is the same industry that SpaceX is in. And right here, we can see SpaceX has revenue of $19.3 billion. That's their trailing 12 months. And they have a price to sales ratio of 99. And we can see that this is by far the biggest price to sales ratio. It is way higher than any other company in the same sector. Now, you might be asking, yes, they're in the aerospace sector, but are they really an aerospace company? We looked at their total addressable market. This is more of an AI company. So why don't we compare them to some of the AI giants? So on this stock screener right here, I'm comparing them to companies that are worth over $1.5 trillion. So I'm comparing them to other large companies. We've got Google, Apple, NVIDIA, Broadcom. And once again, we can see that by far the biggest price to sales ratio here is 99, and that is SpaceX. The second highest is Broadcom at 25 and NVIDIA at 20. Now, there's a couple things that could make for a really high price to sales ratio. Number one, their margins. If a company is turning more revenue into profits, then it makes sense that they would have a higher price to sales ratio. The second thing is projected growth. If the company is assumed to grow a whole lot, people are going to be willing to pay more now for the current sales because they're expecting the sales to be way more in the future. So in this case, SpaceX, the growth expectation is clearly huge. Now, they're already a $1.91 trillion company. And the problem with that is as a company gets bigger and bigger, it is more and more difficult to find growth. And so in this case, I would caution expecting tons of growth out of a company that's already so large. So if we look at the typical business cycle, companies typically go through a growth period, and then once they hit maturity, when they're really reaching the majority of their total addressable market, their sales really start to stagnate. Now, that's not to say that a company can't have another growth as they pivot into a new total addressable market. That is totally possible, but this is a typical flow for how a company's revenue could go. So clearly SpaceX is in the growth section because of how the analysts are projecting so much growth out of SpaceX. In fact, if I go to the forecast tab on stockanalysis.com and scroll down to the analyst expectations down here, we are seeing revenue growth projected at 100% for 2026, 86% for 2027, and 96.6% for 2028. So yes, the analysts are expecting huge growth. Also, in terms of their future projected margins, SpaceX is saying that they're going to shoot for a 70% gross margin and a 45% income margin or profit margin. Currently, they are unprofitable. They actually have a negative 26% profit margin, but this is what they're shooting for in the future. So we can use this as a little bit of a benchmark. So if we look at NVIDIA, for instance, let's go to their financials and look at their margins. So this company has a gross margin of 74 and a profit margin of 63. So NVIDIA, a little bit more profitable than where SpaceX is trying to get. They're more profitable than that right now. Also, NVIDIA has a really strong growth trajectory. If we go to the forecast for NVIDIA, 81% growth, 41% growth, and 22% growth. So NVIDIA is projected to grow a lot as well. And yet, NVIDIA, if we look at their price to sales ratio, NVIDIA has a price to sales ratio of 20. So personally, I find it very unlikely that in 5 years, as SpaceX continues to hit its growth trajectories, that they're going to be able to maintain a price to sales of 99. Their price to sales is going to start to come down as a majority of their early growth is done. It's going to become more and more difficult to grow as they get bigger. Their price to sales ratio is probably going to start to fall in line with some of these other elite, by the way, elite companies like NVIDIA and Broadcom, who only have price to sales of 25 and 20, and they're in the AI sector. And just to showcase how price to sales ratios typically get smaller as a company gets larger, I also have this screener that shows companies over 100 billion. The previous one only showed companies over 1.5 trillion. And even on companies that are 10 times smaller than SpaceX, they still all have lower price to sales ratios. The biggest one here under SpaceX is ARM Holdings. They have a revenue of just 5 billion and a market cap of 345 billion. They have a price to sales of 70. So and they're smaller than SpaceX. As SpaceX gets bigger, the price to sales is probably going to go down, leading me to believe that it might be a little bit expensive right now. That brings us to our final part of the framework, expectations. What has to happen for me to get a good return on my investment over the next 5 years? Starlink could keep growing. Starships might become more and more reliable. AI could grow at 100 times the current rate. SpaceX could earn strong returns, and all of the estimates could be right, but is the price currently too high, even if all of those great things happen? And then what would I expect with the share price if the reality is just a little bit lower than the expectations? So that is the question I want to answer next. Normally, I use a discounted free cash flow valuation, but in this case, since SpaceX does not yet have positive free cash flow, I'm going to use the price to sales ratio. So number one, I type in the current shares, their current revenue, the current share price, and their current rate of dilution. Now, this is a really big factor because remember, each share that I own is going to be worth less and less if this company has to continue to issue more shares to pay for its growth. And we know that this company is planning to grow a lot. This article on MarketWatch says Elon Musk's Terafab could give a major boost to hit this corner of the chip sector. He is projected to spend $1.1 trillion towards capital expenditures over the next 5 years. We already showed that this company does not have free cash flow right now. The only way for them to continue raising cash to pay for this growth is going to be through debt or issuing more shares. So how much have they diluted already? If I look at their share count in the first quarter of 2026, I can see it right here, 3.884 billion shares, and compare that to the first quarter 1 year ago, 2.875 billion shares. That is a 35% dilution. So initially for this estimate, I'm going to go with they're going to continue at that rate. They're going to continue to dilute their shares at 35% per year. Now, this is where I'm making a table of possible outcomes, of possible share prices. So here I have the three growth trajectories. If all of the analysts are correct, they would have to grow at 90% per year for the next 5 years. For the medium projections, I'm using Morningstar Equity Analyst Report. Here's their report right here. Morningstar is saying that they're going to grow at 31% over the next 5 years. So that's going to be my medium assumption. And for my low assumption, I just took 10% off. Let's say they grow at 25% per year. The next big assumption is, what is their price to sales ratio going to be? If they're able to have the highest price to sales ratio amongst its peers, for companies over $1.5 trillion, they would have a price to sales of 25 in 5 years. That would be matching Broadcom. They may be a little bit lower. They may match NVIDIA after 5 years, or they might be a little bit lower than NVIDIA. They might be 15. And these are still all really high price to sales ratios. So given this set of assumptions, this is the range of possible share prices. The highest, if they hit 90% growth and they have a 25 price to sales ratio, the share price would be 196. However, this would only give me a 6% return on average over the next 5 years. So even if the best possible outcome happens, I'm still getting a very small return. If a medium assumption happens where Morningstar is correct, they grow at 35%, and then they end up with a price to sales ratio of 20, now the share price is going to be 28 in 5 years. Now I'm losing 27% on average per year. That's absolutely horrible. And then obviously it only gets worse from there. Now, we could tinker with these assumptions to give some different results. Maybe they don't have to actually dilute 35% every year for the next 5 years. Maybe they get profitable after a couple years and they no longer have to dilute. We can drop this dilution down. Let's say they dilute a little bit less than half as much at 15%. Even with 15% dilution, the best case scenario is I get a 25% return per year, with the average scenario being losing 15% per year and the lowest case being losing 26% per year. I do this to show what the current expectation is for growth with this company. And obviously you can tinker with these expectations to get any result that you want. So if you're putting garbage assumptions in, you're going to get a garbage result. And maybe you disagree with my assumptions here. Maybe you think that SpaceX will have a much larger price to sales than 25. And despite being a $4 trillion company, they're able to have a price to sales ratio much higher than any of the competition. And if you believe that, you can put that into your own set of assumptions and make your own choice. At the end of the day, the goal is to show what is the chance that I could have a good result with this investment. And if I think that the expectations are too high, I'm not losing anything if I don't invest. The only way I lose is if I make a bad investment. Sitting on the sidelines or just investing in an ETF, that is a perfectly good path for any investor. You don't have to take a swing at every single pitch. You can wait for your ideal pitch where you feel the most confident that you're going to get a hit and then take a swing on that one. You can watch every single pitch go by. You're never going to strike out in investing. You can wait as long as you need. That's why it's so important to do the work before you buy. Challenge the story, read the numbers, demand undervaluation before you take a swing on the pitch. That's what I do every single Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. This is my public YouTube portfolio series where I invest in a different company every week, and I hope to see you there.